Something about Michio Kaku's expression that day unsettled everyone in the room. This wasn't the charismatic physicist the world had grown used to, always smiling, always weaving impossible cosmic ideas into captivating explanations. This time, his voice faltered. His eyes locked onto a single image glowing on the screen behind him, and for a moment, he seemed almost afraid. When he finally spoke, the hall filled with scientists, journalists, and space historians fell into a silence so deep it felt suffocating. The presentation was supposed to reveal the latest data from lunar observation satellites, but what unfolded became something far greater. It wasn't just science. It was a confession, an admission that the moon we thought we knew had just rewritten the story of our existence. And by the time Kaku was finished, it was clear why his voice had cracked. Because what was uncovered beneath the moon's surface wasn't natural at all. He began with data collected from newly deployed quantum deep imaging satellites. These instruments probed beneath the lunar crust with more precision than anything ever attempted. The assumption had always been that beneath the surface lay solid rock, ancient lava tubes, or geological voids. Instead, the scans revealed vast hollow chambers, some stretching hundreds of kilometers, arranged in geometric patterns far too precise to be random. These were not chaotic cavities created by volcanic activity or chance. They were aligned, symmetrical, and deliberate. And when thermal readings detected localized sources of heat, steady, controlled, and pulsing like the rhythm of a machine, an uneasy realization spread across the room. Something inside the moon wasn't just artificial. It was still active. What followed was even harder to accept. For decades, gravitational anomalies around the moon had been dismissed as quirks of measurement. But when mapped in high resolution, the irregularities formed a grid-like structure, lines of force running across the lunar surface and intersecting at exact intervals, like the hidden skeleton of a machine. Independent data from multiple space agencies confirmed the same thing, a lattice network aligned with the hollow chambers beneath. If this structure still functioned, then the moon was more than a satellite. It was operating as a regulator. Perhaps it wasn't only maintaining its own orbit, but actively influencing Earth itself, controlling tides, stabilizing the planet's axis, maybe even guiding conditions for life. If that was true, then the moon wasn't simply a natural neighbor. It was placed here. At this point, Kaku shifted from science to myth. Across ancient civilizations, from the Sumerians to the Maya to the Egyptians, legends describe a time before the moon appeared in the sky. Some texts portray it not as an eternal presence but as an arrival, a newcomer, even a vessel. Stories speak of gods descending from it, of nights without its light, of teachings that came after its appearance. For centuries, historians dismissed such myths as symbolic metaphors. But aligned with modern data, they began to look eerily like fragmented memories, records of something humanity once witnessed but could not explain. Even lunar eclipses, long admired for their beauty, took on a different light. The fact that the moon's size and distance make it capable of perfectly covering the sun during an eclipse is something unique in the entire solar system. Was that coincidence, or careful design? Then came the metals. Using advanced tomography, researchers found reflective materials beneath the lunar crust, substances that deflected radar in unnatural ways. These weren't random ores. They appeared arranged in geometric patterns, forming layered shells like protective casing. Simulated stress tests suggested these materials were not only highly resilient, but engineered to withstand impacts and vast stretches of time. It was as though the moon had been armored, built to endure for eons. Suddenly, old records of moonquakes from the Apollo missions seemed different. For decades, scientists noted how seismic echoes lasted far longer than expected, sometimes for hours, leading to the haunting phrase, "The moon rang like a bell." With this new data, that description no longer sounded poetic. It sounded literal. The only way for such resonance to occur was if the moon's interior was hollow or reinforced. In other words, built. Kaku then unveiled evidence of strange emissions from the far side of the moon. Radio astronomers had long detected low-frequency bursts that didn't fit any known geological or solar activity. These signals repeated at intervals, always from the same locations, as though responding to lunar cycles. When processed through advanced filters, some revealed patterns resembling primitive digital codes, structured, repeating, intentional. Could the moon itself be transmitting? Was it a beacon, a surveillance system, or something waiting for a trigger? No one dared to answer out loud. But the fact that these emissions often spiked when probes passed behind the moon left little room for doubt. Whatever it was aware of us. And then there was the orbit. The moon's size, distance, and motion are so exact that they allowed total solar eclipses to occur, a phenomenon nowhere else in the solar system. Orbital simulations show its path is unnaturally stable, resisting the long-term drift seen in other moons. Even its tidal locking, always showing the same face to Earth, was presented in textbooks as a natural result of gravity. But the probability of it happening so precisely is infinitesimally small. It felt less like chance and more like choreography. The moon wasn't just orbiting Earth. It was performing for it. Perhaps the most unsettling part of Kaku's presentation wasn't what had been discovered, but what had been hidden. He referenced the missing Apollo tapes, lost telemetry data, erased voice recordings, and mission transcripts with unexplained gaps. Whistleblowers from NASA had begun speaking of astronauts witnessing lights on the lunar surface, mechanical hums beneath their boots, and unexplained communication blackouts when passing over the far side. Many of these accounts were quietly buried or dismissed as technical errors. But the pattern was undeniable. Something about the moon had been deliberately kept secret. And if governments had been hiding it for decades, one had to wonder, what exactly was too dangerous for the public to know? When Kaku finally stepped back from the podium, the silence in the hall was unbearable. It wasn't awe. It was dread. The moon, long a symbol of romance and serenity, now loomed as something else entirely, a machine, a regulator, a presence watching us from the sky. From its impossible orbit to its hollow echoes, from ancient myths to erased NASA recordings, the picture was undeniable. The moon might not be a natural satellite at all. It may not be lifeless. And it may not even be ours. Now we are left with the most haunting question of all. If the moon is artificial, if it was built and placed with purpose, then by whom? And if it's still